Estamos listas y listos entonces para empezar esta sesión del día de hoy. Mi nombre es Nancy Amador y voy a tener el gusto de guiarles por este tiempo que vamos a estar teniendo juntas y juntos, con un par de detalles también con respecto a la dinámica que vamos a tener. Y bueno, darles la bienvenida nuevamente a todas y a todos. Gracias por estar acá. Espero que todas y todos, si lo requieren, tengan los aparatos de traducción, de interpretación simultánea. Y bueno, si no, pues aquí estaremos en la conversación. Muy bien. En nombre del Instituto Nacional de Psiquiatría Ramón de la Fuente Muñiz, les damos la más cordial bienvenida a la conferencia Terapia dialéctica conductual para niñas, niños y adolescentes y análisis del problema central. Después de hoy van a saber qué significa eso. Vamos a hablar de innovaciones clínicas para la desregulación emocional y conductual severa en infancias, adolescencias y más allá. Nos da mucho gusto contar hoy con la presencia de profesionales, autoridades, investigadoras, investigadores, estudiantes y representantes de las distintas instituciones y organizaciones comprometidas con la salud mental de niñas, niños y adolescentes. Este encuentro es resultado de un gran esfuerzo colectivo. Durante varios meses, los equipos del Centro Integral de Capacitación que dirige la doctora Francesca, el Instituto Nacional de Psiquiatría, Ramón de la Fuente Muñiz y el Instituto de Terapia y Análisis de Conducta tuvieron varias conversaciones para poder hacer realidad este encuentro. Hemos trabajado de manera coordinada para hacer posible esta conferencia, la reunión institucional y el proceso de formación que se desarrolla esta semana a cargo del Instituto de Terapia y Análisis de la Conducta. Ha requerido muchas horas de planeación, coordinación, traducción, ya lo verán, adaptación de materiales y resolución conjunta de numerosos detalles. ¿Quién no diría que una conferencia implicaría tantas cosas? Este trabajo refleja una alianza construida con confianza, generosidad y un compromiso compartido con la salud mental de niñas, niños, adolescentes y sus familias. Queremos agradecer especialmente al doctor Eduardo Madrigal y a la doctora Shoshana Berenson por su confianza, acompañamiento y apoyo para llevar a cabo ambos eventos. También expresamos un agradecimiento muy especial al Instituto de Terapia y Análisis de la Conducta, ITAC, particularmente a la doctora Alejandra Castellanos, directora general, al doctor Michel Reyes, coordinador académico, y a la doctora Saraí Sánchez, coordinadora clínica y del área de infancia y adolescencia, que nos acompaña el día de hoy aquí, ya que ellos están, como les comentaba, organizando esta primera capacitación presencial en el modelo DBTC en México, iniciando el mes de diciembre del año pasado, y justo esta semana coincidió en que pudiéramos tener un espacio que ellos nos otorgaron para tener este encuentro. Esta semana ellos concluyen la capacitación formal de estos profesionales aquí en Ciudad de México y tendrán a la primera generación capacitada en el modelo de manera presencial. Muchas felicidades. Creemos que su compromiso, constancia y trabajo han sido fundamentales para comenzar a desarrollar capacidades especiales en nuestro país. Agradecemos profundamente a la doctora Pereplech-Chikova y a todo su equipo por su generosidad, disposición y por el enorme trabajo invertido para acompañar este proceso. También queremos reconocer a quienes hoy nos acompañan. Para conocernos un poquito mejor, nos gustaría saber quiénes nos acompañan de aquí del interior del instituto. ¿Podrían levantar su manita? Ok, muchas gracias. ¿Quiénes nos acompañan de fuera del instituto? Ahí también veo otras manitas. De la sociedad civil, organizaciones no gubernamentales. ¿Hay alguien del área privada? Bueno, aquí Saraí y por acá. Bienvenidas y bienvenidos a cada una de ustedes. Ver esta diversidad de experiencias reunida en una misma sala nos recuerda que los desafíos complejos de la salud mental infantil y adolescente requieren la articulación de distintos conocimientos, sectores e instituciones. Estoy segura que ahorita en YouTube seguramente muchas personas también estarán comentando de dónde nos están acompañando. Les vamos a dar un par de indicaciones antes de proceder directamente directamente con las palabras de nuestro presidium. Les pedimos, por favor, como ya lo tienen ahí, el que puedan escanear el código QR que aparece en pantalla y poder registrar su asistencia. Como saben, bueno, estamos con transmisión simultánea a través de YouTube. En YouTube, pues la gente que nos acompaña va a escuchar lo que estemos hablando directamente desde el micrófono, así que cuando la doctora Francesca hable, escuchará la versión en inglés. La buena noticia es que se subirá la traducción simultánea la próxima semana para que todas las personas que quieran acceder a esta información pues puedan tener acceso a ella. Por otro lado, para quienes se encuentran presencialmente, contamos con el servicio de interpretación simultánea a cargo de 2 especialistas, el maestro David Epstein y Laura Lafuente. Del equipo de Omnilingua también está encabezado por Rogelio Díaz y les agradecemos muchísimo por la labor tan profesional que van a hacer el día de hoy con todo lo que se hará. Finalmente, para la sesión de preguntas y respuestas, dada la dinámica que debemos tener con los intérpretes, haremos esto a través de un código QR. Les pedimos, por favor, si lo pueden escanear, lo vamos a estar poniendo en diferentes momentos de la sesión y ahí pueden ir ingresando sus preguntas. Para facilitar que los intérpretes escuchen bien lo que se va a preguntar, la maestra Guadalupe Ramírez estará coordinando esa sección, estará atenta a lo que ustedes vayan poniendo en el código y al final haremos esta sesión de preguntas. Muy bien. Ok. Muy bien, entonces nos acompañan en el presidium el doctor Eduardo Ángel Madrigal de León, director general del Instituto Nacional de Psiquiatría Ramón de la Fuente Muñiz, para quien les pido un fuerte aplauso. Gracias. También tenemos el gusto de contar con el doctor Agustín Becerra Torres, director general de Atención Especializada en Salud Mental en la Comisión Nacional de Salud Mental y Adicciones CONASAMA. Lo recibimos también con un fuerte aplauso. Gracias, doctor. El doctor José Antonio Zorrilla, jefe de la División de Servicios Paramédicos del Hospital Psiquiátrico Infantil Juan N. Navarro, quien asiste en representación del director del hospital, el doctor Daniel Alejandro Díaz Domínguez. Bienvenido y le deseamos que el doctor Daniel se recupere muy pronto. Y finalmente la doctora Francesca Pereplechikova, desarrolladora de la terapia dialéctica conductual para niñas, niños, y es investigadora clínica y formadora de profesionales. Ya sabrán un poquito más de ella. Así que, sin más, para ofrecer el mensaje institucional de bienvenida, tengo el honor de ceder la palabra al doctor Eduardo Madrigal, director de este instituto.
Muy buenos días tengan todas y todos ustedes. Gracias por la presentación, excelente organización, Nancy Amador, de este evento. Hay desafíos que ninguna disciplina, institución o profesión puede resolver por sí sola. Me refiero a la salud mental de niñas, niños y adolescentes, que es una de ellas. En México, esta urgencia tiene una dimensión muy concreta. El Programa Sectorial de Salud 2025-2030 reconoce que los intentos de suicidio en adolescentes aumentaron más del 600% desde el 2006. Detrás de ese dato hay niñas, niños y adolescentes que no siempre comprenden lo que les ocurre y familias que recorren un largo camino antes de encontrar respuestas. Aceptar esta realidad no significa resignarnos, significa asumir la responsabilidad compartida de transformarla. Y hoy contamos con razones científicas para mantener la esperanza. Sabemos que las trayectorias del desarrollo no están escritas de antemano. Pueden cambiar cuando las dificultades se identifican a tiempo y existen intervenciones eficaces, profesionales, preparados y entornos capaces de acompañar. No se trata de una esperanza ingenua, es una esperanza sustentada en la evidencia. En México no partimos de cero. Contamos con investigadoras e investigadores, hospitales, universidades, servicios públicos y organizaciones que todos los días generan conocimiento e innovan para mejorar la atención. Nuestro reto es articular mejor ese talento para que llegue con oportunidad y calidad a quienes más lo necesitan. Ese compromiso forma parte de una agenda nacional, como lo mencionaba el Plan Nacional de Desarrollo y el Programa Sectorial de Salud, que colocan la prevención, la atención oportuna y la coordinación interinstitucional entre las prioridades del país. Al mismo tiempo, nuestra legislación reconoce a niñas, niños y adolescentes como titulares de derechos al más alto nivel posible de salud y dispone la detección y atención especial de los problemas de salud mental. Para el Instituto Nacional de Psiquiatría Ramón de la Fuente Muñiz, este marco implica una responsabilidad clara. Como institución pública tenemos el privilegio de generar conocimiento, pero sobre todo tenemos la obligación de ponerlo al servicio de las personas. Eso significa completar el ciclo, investigar, formar profesionales, desarrollar y evaluar intervenciones, acompañar su implementación y aprender de la experiencia. Solo así podemos reducir la distancia entre lo que la ciencia sabe y lo que las familias viven. En este contexto, adquiere un significado especial el encuentro de hoy. Es un privilegio recibir en México a la doctora Francesca Perepletiskova, cuya trayectoria científica y clínica refleja el esfuerzo por transformar el conocimiento en mejores oportunidades para niñas, niños, adolescentes y sus familias. En su conferencia conoceremos la terapia dialéctica conductual adaptada para este grupo etario, niñas, niños y adolescentes, y su componente de trabajo con madres, padres y personas cuidadoras. Escucharemos acerca de sus fundamentos, de la evidencia disponible y de sus innovaciones, así como de una propuesta que integra dos tareas inseparables: validar la experiencia de quienes viven emociones intensas y al mismo tiempo desarrollar habilidades y transformar los entornos para favorecer trayectorias más seguras. Su visita nos ofrece la oportunidad de dialogar entre la experiencia internacional y el conocimiento desarrollado en México, de fortalecer las capacidades de nuestros equipos y de pensar con rigor y sensibilidad cultural cómo llevar mejores intervenciones a los servicios que atienden a nuestras infancias y adolescencias. Hoy nos reúne esta convocatoria. Ninguna niña, ningún niño, ningún adolescente debería enfrentar una sociedad y los desafíos de su salud mental solo, y ninguna familia debe recorrer ese camino sin encontrar personas preparadas para comprender, acompañar e intervenir. La ciencia no elimina la complejidad de la vida. Lo que hace es ampliar nuestras posibilidades para comprenderla, acompañarla y transformarla. Doctora Pérez Pletiskova, sea usted muy bienvenida al Instituto Nacional de Psiquiatría Ramón de la Fuente Muñiz. Agradecemos profundamente su presencia y la generosidad de compartir su experiencia con nuestra comunidad. Y a todos ustedes, también a los que están a distancia, pues muy bienvenidos a esta conferencia. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, doctor Madrigal. Nos parece que sus palabras sitúan este encuentro dentro de una responsabilidad fundamental de las instituciones públicas, lograr que el conocimiento científico se traduzca en mejores oportunidades de atención para las personas. Para ampliar esta reflexión desde la perspectiva de la política pública y de los servicios especializados de salud mental en nuestro país, cedemos la palabra al doctor Agustín Becerra Torres, director general de Atención Especializada en Salud Mental en CONASAMA.
Doctor Eduardo Ángel Madrigal de León, doctora Francesca Pereplechikova, estimadas autoridades, colegas profesionales de la salud mental que hoy nos acompañan y que siempre es un gusto caminar, de verdad, de la mano y del lado de ustedes. A nombre de la Comisión Nacional de Salud Mental y Adicciones, y como portador de un afectuoso saludo por parte de la Comisionada Nacional, la doctora Yerania Enríquez López, agradezco al Instituto Nacional de Psiquiatría Ramón de la Fuente Muñiz la invitación a tan destacado evento académico. Vivimos una etapa histórica, social y económica que diversas instituciones académicas, instituciones sociales, gubernamentales, han denominado el periodo pospandémico. Esta etapa histórica, en la cual es cada vez más evidente el incremento en el diagnóstico, por un lado, de padecimientos crónicos, padecimientos orgánicos y así pues, padecimientos de salud mental, se ha visto matizado y con un notable incremento global de las tasas de ansiedad y de depresión, acompañándose también de un incremento en la visibilización y la detección de casos de desregulación emocional y de casos, por supuesto, de dificultades conductuales de niñas y niños. Ante este escenario, los esquemas terapéuticos tradicionales pueden ser insuficientes para evitar la evolución de dicha desregulación emocional hacia alteraciones de la personalidad, hacia la depresión, hacia ansiedad, así bien hacia el consumo de sustancias y, en el peor de los escenarios, para conductas suicidas y autolesivas. Por este motivo es necesario fortalecer la capacidad de nuestro personal, de nosotros mismos, todo el personal de salud mental, con miras a lograr un diagnóstico oportuno y con miras a la implementación de un esquema terapéutico temprano, con el consecuente otorgamiento temprano de herramientas de autorregulación eficaz. Esto en entornos debidamente analizados por el equipo terapéutico, así como el entrenamiento de convivientes, y no solamente el entrenamiento en una comunicación asertiva, sí, y no solo eso, sino en un comportamiento asertivo, validante, respetuoso y, por supuesto, consistente, a lo largo del ciclo de la vida de nuestras niñas y nuestros niños. Es aquí donde la terapia dialéctica conductual para niñas y niños se erige como una solución robusta, una solución con el mayor respaldo empírico a nivel mundial para la reducción del riesgo suicida y la impulsividad. Al implementar y difundir la terapia dialéctica conductual para niñas y niños, el Instituto Nacional de Psiquiatría y el Hospital Psiquiátrico Infantil, Dr. Juan N. Navarro, reafirman su compromiso con las familias que enfrentan una irritabilidad crónica, que enfrentan agresión o ideación suicida en sus hogares. Así pues viene una invitación franca y una invitación cercana. Caminemos juntos, construyendo para nuestras infancias puentes de validación y herramientas eficaces que les permitan transitar en un entorno hostil y violento hacia una vida que valga la pena ser vivida. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, doctor, por sus palabras. Me encanta esa frase que utilizamos tanto en DBT, esta parte de tener una vida que valga la pena ser vivida. Para hablarnos sobre las demandas actuales de atención y los principales desafíos del sistema, cedemos la palabra al doctor José Antonio Zorrilla, jefe de la División de Servicios Paramédicos del Hospital Psiquiátrico Infantil Juan N. Navarro. Adelante, doctor.
Muy buenos días a todas y a todos. Agradezco a las autoridades del Instituto Nacional de Psiquiatría, de CONASAMA, la organización también de la doctora Nancy, la doctora Susana, y yo les voy a presentar un poco sobre el panorama de la salud mental en niñas, niños y adolescentes. ¿Me podrían pasar la presentación? Muy bien. Bueno, para hablar un poco sobre el panorama, les voy a hablar sobre las generalidades que tenemos respecto a la atención psiquiátrica en niñas, niños y adolescentes. Sabemos que la enfermedad mental se encuentra en aumento en población en general y sabemos que el 50% de los trastornos mentales inician durante la adolescencia. El 75% de los trastornos inician antes de los 25 años de edad. Se estima que en Estados Unidos reporta 1 de cada 8 motivos de atención en urgencias médicas involucra algún síntoma psiquiátrico agudo. El 25 al 30% de las urgencias pediátricas también tienen un trasfondo emocional y conductual. En los últimos 15 años se han duplicado, siendo los más comunes los comportamientos suicidas, las conductas autolesivas y la agresión. Dentro de las urgencias psiquiátricas infantiles, que se considera como una condición mental que genera el suficiente estrés para el paciente, para la familia o tutor, que generan incapacidad para el manejo de la situación. Dentro de también la epidemiología tenemos que el 75% de estos padecimientos psiquiátricos, como les decía, inicia antes de los 25 años de edad durante la adolescencia. Hay una heterogeneidad en los síntomas de cada diagnóstico y las consecuencias a largo plazo también difieren según la etapa del desarrollo. También los factores de riesgo varían en función a cada etapa del desarrollo en la que se encuentra el menor. El efecto del estrés también es diferente y la disfunción de los síntomas también implica en las consecuencias que puede haber. En esta gráfica vemos también la edad aproximada en la cual se empiezan a desarrollar los trastornos mentales más frecuentes. En los primeros 10 años de vida, los trastornos de ansiedad son frecuentemente reportados. Posteriormente, cuando inicia después de los 10 años aproximadamente, los problemas de conducta, como el trastorno oposicionista desafiante, los trastornos de la conducta alimentaria cobran una gran importancia, así como los trastornos del estado de ánimo. También en la adolescencia es más frecuente que puedan presentarse los trastornos por uso de sustancias y empezar a desarrollar los trastornos de personalidad, las asociaciones de rasgos de personalidad y también los trastornos psicóticos. Dentro de la prevalencia general, sabemos también que hay varios estudios que reportan que entre el 12% y el 29% de los niños entre 5 y 15 años a lo largo del mundo presentan problemas de salud mental. Dentro de los tipos de trastornos más identificados, encontramos dentro de los países de bajos recursos no difieren a los observados en países industrializados. También se han observado que los síntomas no difieren significativamente dependiendo de la cultura o trastornos específicos de cada cultura. En 1990, por ejemplo, 5 de 10 de las principales causas de discapacidad se debieron a condiciones psiquiátricas como la depresión unipolar, el consumo del alcohol, el trastorno afectivo bipolar, la esquizofrenia y el trastorno obsesivo compulsivo. Aquí también en esta imagen podemos observar que el suicidio son de las primeras causas reportadas dentro de las causas de muerte en adolescentes a nivel mundial. Las conductas autolesivas frecuentemente reportadas dentro de los 5 primeros diagnósticos. De acuerdo a la OMS, en el 2024 reportaba que en 1 de cada 7 jóvenes entre 10 y 19 años padecían algún trastorno mental, que esto representa el 15% de la carga mundial de mortalidad entre los adolescentes. La depresión, la ansiedad, los trastornos del comportamiento se encuentran también dentro de las principales causas. El suicidio es la tercera causa de disfunción en las personas de entre 15 y 29 años de edad. Dentro de los trastornos emocionales, se calcula que el 4.4% de los adolescentes entre 10 y 14 años y del 5.5% de los de 15 a 19 años sufre un trastorno de ansiedad, el 1.4% de los adolescentes entre 10 y 14 años y 3.2% de usuarios entre 15 y 19 años padecen algún trastorno depresivo. Dentro de los trastornos del comportamiento también se reporta 3.1% entre 10 y 14 años, dentro de los cuales también 2.4% reportado en adolescentes con trastorno por déficit de atención y hiperactividad, y otra afección como el trastorno disocial del comportamiento afecta en 3.6% de esta población. Trastornos de la conducta alimentarias también suelen aparecer en esta etapa y afectan el 0.1% en los adolescentes entre 10 y 14 años de edad y 0.4% entre 15 y 19 años. Son más frecuentes las adolescentes con este tipo de trastornos que los varones. Dentro de los trastornos psicóticos también suelen aparecer al final de la adolescencia o principios de la edad adulta y se estima en 1.1% entre adolescentes entre 15 a 19 años que sufren algún trastorno psicótico como esquizofrenia. Dentro del suicidio y las conductas autolesivas, como les mencionaba, es la tercera causa de disfunción en adolescentes entre 15 y 29 años de edad, y dentro de los factores de riesgo de suicidio son diversos, aunque los frecuentemente reportados es el consumo de sustancias, el maltrato durante la infancia, la estigmatización y los obstáculos que impiden recibir una atención en salud mental. Dentro de las conductas de riesgo pues son múltiples, como el consumo de sustancias, las prácticas sexuales no seguras que se inician durante también esta etapa. Como hemos visto a lo largo de los años, también ha ido en incremento la incidencia de estos trastornos mentales. Desde el 2007 al 2016, las visitas a urgencias en hospitales pediátricos aumentaban y se estimaban entre el 50 y 60%. Del 2011 al 2020 también las visitas relacionadas con el suicidio representaron el 6.6% de todas las visitas en los servicios de urgencias. Del 2009 al 2019 el porcentaje también de estudiantes de secundaria que reportaron sentimientos de tristeza, desesperanza, aumentó en un 40% en Estados Unidos, y ha habido un mayor aumento en el registro también de los jóvenes entre 10 y 14 años de edad. Como saben, también en México hay una importante escasez de especialistas en salud mental. Se estima alrededor en toda la República 4.600 psiquiátricas, el último reporte del 2023, y psiquiatras infantiles 350 reportados con sus documentos y que están activos, de los cuales también hay una cifra que hay 820 psiquiatras infantiles, sin embargo no se tienen los documentos oficiales, ¿no? Y la mayoría están centralizados en la Ciudad de México, en Monterrey y Guadalajara. La OMS recomienda que por lo menos debe haber un psiquiatra también por cada 10,000 habitantes, y en México tenemos un 0.36% de psiquiatras por habitante, ¿no? Lo cual pues es nada. Y como reflexiones o conclusiones, les puedo comentar que igual la salud mental en niñas, niños y adolescentes representa uno de los principales retos de salud pública. Existe una brecha de atención y de disponibilidad de servicios de atención especializada. Las estrategias también con las que contamos terapéuticas tradicionales siguen siendo vigentes y son fundamentales, sin embargo se requieren de otro tipo de modelos más integrales, personalizados para cada adolescente. La prevención también debe de convertirse en el eje central de la atención y promover habilidades socioemocionales, de resiliencia, de regulación emocional, de crianza positiva, ambientes escolares seguros. El abordaje debe ser interdisciplinario e intersectorial. También sabemos que el panorama, como les he mencionado, de la salud mental en las infancias en México, pues demanda una transformación del modelo de atención, y es indispensable adoptar estrategias terapéuticas innovadoras que sean accesibles a toda la población y que sean sustentadas en evidencia científica, que prioricen la prevención, la detección temprana y la intervención integral de los trastornos. Y bueno, les agradezco su atención.
Hubo que respirar profundo después de ver esa información. Muchas gracias, doctor José Zorrilla, por presentar las necesidades y los desafíos de esta manera, ya que nos ayuda a comprender por qué resulta tan importante conocer, evaluar y adaptar intervenciones dirigidas a situaciones clínicas de alta complejidad. Creo que en mi mente se queda la pregunta de qué va a pasar, cuáles van a ser los costos si no empezamos ya a atender esa situación. Bueno, hoy tenemos el privilegio de recibir en México a la doctora Francesca Pereplechikova, cuyo trabajo ha contribuido precisamente al desarrollo de la terapia dialéctica conductual para niñas y niños, conocida como DBTC. Francesca, agradecemos profundamente tu presencia, tu generosidad y todo el trabajo que tú y tu equipo han realizado para hacer posible este encuentro y el proceso de capacitación que concluye esta semana. Me voy a permitir leer la semblanza de la doctora Francesca. Ella es clínica certificada por el Consejo de Certificación DBT del INEHAN. Es profesora asociada de psiquiatría en la Facultad de Medicina de la Universidad de Massachusetts. Es directora fundadora del programa de terapia dialéctica conductual para jóvenes, centrado en el tratamiento de niñas, niños, adolescentes y personas adultas jóvenes mediante el modelo DBT. Además, fundó el Centro de Capacitación y Orientación en DBT para niñas y niños, especializado en ofrecer talleres de capacitación a madres, padres y otras personas cuidadoras. También es cofundadora del Centro Integral de Capacitación, que ofrece talleres sobre el modelo estándar de DBT y DBT para niñas y niños a profesionales de la salud mental con licencia para ejercer. La doctora Pereplechikova obtuvo el doctorado en Psicología Clínica en el Departamento de Psicología de la Universidad de Yale en 2007 y en 2015 se convirtió en entrenadora de DBT en Behavioral Tech, una organización que capacita de capacitación del Instituto Linehan. En 2016, la doctora obtuvo la certificación como clínica por el Consejo de Certificación DBT del Linehan. A lo largo de su trayectoria ha mantenido un amplio interés en la regulación emocional, la psicopatología relacionada con el trauma, la conducta suicida, las autolesiones no suicidas y el desarrollo de tratamientos psicoterapéuticos. Desde 2010 ha centrado su trabajo en la adaptación de DBT para niñas y niños preadolescentes con desregulación emocional y conducta severa. Como integrante del personal académico de la Facultad de Medicina de la Universidad de Yale y de la Universidad de Medicina Weill Cornell, la doctora Pereplechikova llevó a cabo diversos ensayos clínicos aleatorizados para evaluar la eficacia de DBT para niñas y niños. Esta línea de investigación ha sido financiada mediante subvenciones del Instituto Nacional de Salud Mental de Estados Unidos y ha recibido el Premio Nacional de Servicio de Investigación, y además de diversas fundaciones privadas. La doctora es autora de 30 artículos científicos, capítulos del libro y del libro Integridad del Tratamiento en la Investigación de Resultados Terapéuticos, y ha impartido más de 300 conferencias, presentaciones y talleres en distintos países del mundo. Francesca, bienvenida, el micrófono es tuyo.
Hi, everybody. This is such a pleasure and a true privilege. Well, you probably know that I am currently living in the United States. I lived there for more than 30 years. However, my country of origin is Ukraine. This is the country that is always in my heart. And as you know, Ukraine has been fighting for more than 4 years. It's going to be 5 very soon with Russians and against Russian occupation. So I would want for my country of origin to be represented at this event. Thank you so much. Slava to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Well, before I get into all of my slides, I just want to give you a snapshot of what DBT for children is all about. This is, can't stand in one place. This is Train the Trainer, parents' first approach, meaning that we are there not to just work with the child. Working with the child is actually a luxury. Having a child as young as 7, 8, 5, 6, even 13, even an adolescent, to have the mental capacity and to understand the need for therapy, that's a bit of much to ask, wouldn't you say? So whether or not they're there is not as relevant. What is relevant is when parents are coming in, they're informed what's going to happen, they're making an informed commitment, and they're actually there to learn what they need to do. Because imagine our brain being a biological computer, which it is for all intended purposes. We have our main processor, our memory banks, the way that it synthesizes information and processes it. Now, if my computer is broken, it has all kind of virus programs, and I give it to the geek squad to fix it, They may fix it, they may remove all the virus programs, but they're going to do what? Give it back to me. And what am I going to do? Put all of those virus programs back in. Children are products of their families, their genetics and their environmental processes. Parents are the most important foundational programmers for their children. Therefore, our emphasis is not on the child in treatment. Child is our target, helping the child to improve the emotional regulation and all the other skills and the capacity and to eventually achieve a life worth living. Yes, this is our main target, but parents are our main tools to achieve it. Therefore, whether or not child even enters into therapy or enters into therapy kicking and screaming and sits in front of me and says, I don't know, I don't care, you know what? That's absolutely fine. Child's participation is a luxury, okay? Not a requirement. Parents coming in, parents doing what they need to do, that is a need, that is an absolute requirement for me to even start therapy with them. And of course, first I do very much of an informed introduction of what they're going to do, what to expect, what I'm going to offer, what I will be asking them to do before they make a commitment to therapy. Because commitment is not just made by me to them, right? Or for them, they need, most importantly, to make a commitment. And for me to make a commitment to them, I need to know that it actually is going to work to achieve a high level of probability, because otherwise I am doing something that's not going to be useful. Why? Because that family is not going to benefit. And I am taking that spot from somebody who might. And I'm burning myself out, I'm burning them out. And when they're ready for therapy, what they're going to remember? Therapy doesn't work, right? So we're very, very careful. And we make sure that the commitment is as informed as possible. And my last question to parents before I say, all right, I'm admitting you in treatment is you know what it is? I'm saying this. All right, my last question to you. And your answer determines whether you're in. My question is, when I say jump, what are you going to answer? The only answer I accept is how high. That's what's involved. Because as you heard today, we're not dealing just with depression and anxiety. We're treating children who are suicidal, who are self-harming. We need to make sure that the tools that we're using actually are working. If I'm a surgeon and I'm using a scalpel and it's misbehaving, I'm going to kill my client. This is the same level. These are suicidal kids. And I'm sorry to say that. This is very sad that I'm treating 6 and 5-year-olds who are suicidal, but that's what it is. All right. So before I proceed, I want for you to take and put a piece of the puzzle into your mind of this is parent first approach. And because of that, DBTC is not just for children. Yes, it has it in the name. We have done a lot of research with children on the model. But this is a model that is not about age. You can use it for children, for adolescents, for young adults, and for older adults. Because if you're 90 and your child is 70, you still need to know how to validate. You still need to know how to form and maintain a healthy relationship with your child. It's not about the age, it's about the approach. I'm going to start with research. I'll try to go fast with that so we can get to interesting stuff, okay? All right. Oh, I have a clicker. Yay. All right. All right, so the first trial I want to talk about is the trial that has been done at Cornell University. This is the trial in which we had children 7 to 12. We compared DBT for children to treatment as usual, meaning whatever is used at that facility for children who are emotionally and behaviorally dysregulated. And as you can see, we included children that were quite homogeneous population. we included children with what's called disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. And we pretty much needed to make sure that they can be indeed treated in the outpatient facility. And we excluded bipolar, psychosis, and if a child is in custody of the state, meaning removed from parents, because as you know by now, this is parents' first approach. All right, so intervention was 32 weeks. Parents and children would start intervention at the same time. And it was once per week, 90 minutes, 30 minutes with the child, 20 minutes with parents, and 40 minutes skills training with both, right? And then you see treatment as usual. We tried to match the treatment components as much as possible, but it was a lot of different intervention that has been used for the treatment as usual. I'm not going to go too far into this. I just want to highlight that we had a pretty good, match between male and female, that our mean age was 9. This is the diagnoses that they had. Now, suicidal ideation. You see, these are age 9 average. And when we're talking about suicidal ideation, suicidal behavior, we did not count, I want to go to school, I want to kill myself. No, this is serious. This is with intent, a lot of the time with means. Only then we would count it as, yes, child has suicidal ideation. And we also had children with non-suicidal self-injury, self-harm, such as cutting, burning. And I just want to highlight something. Research shows that child suicidality could be at the level of adolescent suicidality. The only reason, unfortunately, why it's not, as per research, is children don't have as much access to means as adolescents do. So this is very serious. So no psychiatric medications. So about 32 kids, 72% were not on psychiatric meds in that trial. So what did we try to do? We tried to look at, can we do it with kids, and also collect preliminary efficacy. Something to highlight there. Look at that. Dropout rate from DBTC was 0. These parents came in hungry. They were like, whatever it takes, I cannot take it anymore. I want to throw my child out of the balcony, literally, or myself out of the balcony, right? These are children. Disruptive mood dysregulation is very serious disorder. This is children who are pretty much fine, right? Fine. And then something happens. Nobody knows what that was, because it virtually something that other people may not be able to perceive. Somebody did not look right at me. Something happened, and I may have some sort of a thought or a memory, and then a child who is fine right now, this minute, turns into a tornado. Some of my parents are asking me, are you sure I am not raising a psychopath? Yes. When emotional dysregulation happens, when they are in what we call an emotion mind, what they do can mimic psychopathy. Because this very nice, very caring, very understanding, very creative kid who is very emotionally sensitive and can be very empathic to other people in between outbursts, all of a sudden is saying to mom, die! I wish your cancer comes back, bitch! Okay? And of course, not just verbal, physical, screaming, yelling, physical aggression, all the way to really hurting other people, hurting property. And the thing without disruptive mood dysregulation, it's intermittent. You never know when it's going to happen. Therefore, parents of children with DMDD at much higher stress level, which is another research that has been done, and that study was published in 2024 by a Norwegian team, they actually were able to demonstrate that parents of children with DMDD, in comparison to parents with children with other psychiatric disorders, very severe, depression, anxiety, ADHD, incompresses, all psychosis, right? They are at a higher level of stress. Why? Because you never know when it's going to happen. Children with other disorders, parents are experiencing inevitable misery. Inevitable. This is something that is constant. A child who is depressed is not going to all of a sudden come out of depression or stop being anxious for 2 hours, right? And then go back in deep depression, right? It's inevitable. Children with DMDD, up and down, up and down, up and down. It's a roller coaster. And because of the uncertainty when and how, the stress is very much increased, as you can imagine. All right, so these parents are coming in saying, okay, I want to kill myself, actually. I will do whatever it takes. Okay? Yes, they come in this way, but as you can see, do I also have a pointer? Oh, I have a pointer. Okay. As you can see, the parents were the same, the group was the same, but we still have 36.4% dropout from treatment as usual. So being hungry is necessary, not enough to stay. It's what's being done that kept them in. So not even one parent dropped out from DBTC. And we had almost 90% attendance rate. It's once a week, 90 minutes per time, 32 weeks. Children are being literally dragged in the car, screaming and throwing tantrums as parents with getting them to the intervention. Still 90% attendance rate, as less than 50% for treatment as usual. Another thing to highlight, number of children on psychiatric medications. So as it happens, 4 of the children who indeed were in psychiatric medications were randomly selected to be in DBTC, and another set of children in treatment as usual. Now, not even one child in DBTC condition was put on another medication, and whatever medications they were on, it tapered off. In comparison to children in treatment as usual, during the course of the study, were put on psychiatric medications, and there were 3 times as many kids there, even though the outcomes were not good. And our main efficacy was not self-reports. Self-reports are nice, but people are not very good historians, specifically in self-evaluation. What we did, we took what's called a clinical global impression scale. This is a scale that is being administered by trained psychologists who understand the MDD. They would call parents at specific intervals, and they would ask them questions. And there's a set of questions that was manualized, right, on how the child was doing. And then that severity rating would then be compared to baseline rating to establish what is called an CGI improvement, right? So for us to get the child into treatment, we needed to say that the child was at least at 4, 5 or 6, 7 we would not admit because that's residential care, not safe to treat in the outpatient, right? And an improvement for us to say that indeed that child improved, for us to say that this is an improvement, we have a signal. It needs to be either much improved or very much improved. Okay. It stopped working. No. Maybe the battery. All right. Interesting. Okay, can I go back to my presentation? Oh, this is... No, not working. We need a tech. So it's moving on the screen, but it's no longer connected on the computer screen, no longer connected to the slides. I can be without the clicker, that's okay. Oh, it's working? It's doing this, but not, yeah. So it's not the clicker. Something happened in connection with the screen. Yeah, well, let's try it again. No. What about here? Yes, okay, all right. So it is what it is. So this is the outcome. We had 90% of kids in DBTC that, now it's working. Okay, that improved or very much improved in comparison to 45% treatment as usual. And at 3 months follow-up, we got even better results. You know what that means? We were not there, but who was there? Parents who were trained to be the trainer, who were trained to be the therapist. So we indeed did what we wanted to do, train the trainer. No difference for treatment as usual. And this is remission rate, meaning that at 3 months, the child is not supposed to have any more symptoms of the disorder. And you please, think about that in order for you to say that you are in remission, 3 months after the intervention, you no longer need to meet the clinical range. You're supposed to be pretty much outside of the clinical range. And we were able to achieve that. 52% of the children no longer met requirement to be diagnosed with DMDD. 3 months, we were not even half done because it was a 6 month trial for each child. Half done. We were not even done fully. So results to highlight. Yes, DBTC is effective. Yes, we can do it with children. Yes, it's not only statistically different between the conditions, there is a clinical, outcome that is very important. There's a clinical significance. Also, what I would like to highlight, there was a lot of interventions in treatment as usual that also involve parental practices and training parents. Apparently, what we have so far in the field does not match the needs of our children with DMDD. They may reach the needs of other children, but not our population. And what I want to highlight here is the causal mediating effect was not surprising, but it was very nice to note, was improvements in emotion regulations for kids. So we're actually targeting with the interventions what we hypothesized would be targeted. The second trial is in residential care facility. Now, these are much more severe children. This is not a homogeneous population. This is very heterogeneous population, right? With all kind of diagnoses. They cannot be kept with their parents. And it was also 6 to 13. In that particular facility, we only could do intervention with males. Our exclusion criteria were psychotic disorder, mental retardation, and in care and custody of the Department of Social Services, because even though the children were removed from their parents and placed in residential care, we still wanted to train the parents. Children would see their parents on weekends. Children would see their parents on vacations. And more importantly, at some point, the child is going to be released to the parent. So parents need to know what to do with that child. Seemingly, right? That would make sense, right? But you'll see what happened with that. So we had DBTC, we had individual therapy with the child, we had caregiver training, we had skills training in groups, The first trial I talked about, everything was done individual on a family level with parents. And we had milieu therapy. Milieu means people who are there with the child, helping the child to wake up, to brush teeth, to do homework, play with the child. Pretty much they were in the capacity of the parent. Therefore, training them in what to do was very important. And their report was the most important to us because they were with the child at all times. Now, treatment as usual, we tried to match the treatment components as much as possible. Therefore, we also had individual, skills training, parent training, and we used the same token economy, meaning giving points and giving specific rewards for positive behavior. To highlight, so our age mean was 10. All of them were male. What else? So this is the whole slew of different diagnoses. Most children had, 3 or more diagnoses. Right? Again, even though we excluded mental retardation, but the way that we measured it, we included, it was very lenient. Therefore, what we have is that a full scale IQ was 88, mean was 88. So pretty much way below the average, 1 standard deviation below the average. And again, suicidal ideation, self-harm behaviors, right? Previous hospitalizations, more than 90% have been previously hospitalized, very severe population. Okay. Lots of them were on psychiatric medications, almost half 3 or more meds. Okay. Okay, so we wanted to see, can we do it with kids there, right? Are they gonna refuse, run out screaming? What's gonna happen? And yeah, we were able to do it with kids. We were able to do groups. We were able to do individual. What we were not able to do, we were not able to engage parents. Parents had this attitude, here, fix it. I am out. Okay? We did everything. We wrote them letters. We called them. Therapists were saying, please, whenever you come to visit your child, anytime, please come see me. I will give you information. I will train you on some techniques. I can do it at other times if you cannot attend groups. No. No incentive, no motivation. They were not with the child. So the stressor was removed. While parents in outpatient study, they were there. They had no choice, and therefore they were very motivated to do what it takes, and you can see the difference, right? Now, our efficacy measure was child behavioral checklist because we had such a heterogeneous population. We needed to catch a scope, a range of different psychiatric conditions. And staff report was the most important. We also did parent report and teacher report. We did not train teachers in the interventions because they saw both kids, okay? And we wanted to prevent contamination between conditions. So teachers were not trained. What you're going to see is going to be exactly the same for all the subscales. This is treatment as usual, no change. This is DBTC. You see almost immediate drop and then continue to improve over time. So this is total problems. This is staff report. This is milieu staff, people that were there on the floor. And you'll see exactly the same pattern everywhere. You see huge differences, statistical significance and clinical significance below the clinical range. Parents not trained by their own choice, teachers not trained by the design of the study. No difference for teachers, no difference for parents. Exactly the same thing. Internalizing behaviors, externalizing behaviors, anxious, depressed, withdrawn, depressed, somatic complaints, social problems, thought problems, attention problems, aggressive behaviors, same thing. So now tell me, was our original target, parents, was the correct way to go? because they were the same kids. They received the same therapy, they learned the same techniques, right? It was the same child who behaved pretty well on the units with milieu staff who knew what to do. And even though they knew all the skills, they did not immediately develop amnesia and forgot about all of that when they got to school or went to see their parents. No difference. Is it about the child or is it about the environment? I think that study was very good, highlighting the difference and highlighting who we need to concentrate on. I have so much, I don't know what even to call that word, disdain, right? Amazement that in United States, I don't know exactly how it's here, but in United States, child therapy is between a therapist and a child. And parents are maybe once in a while brought in to just give feedback on how the child is doing. That's it. Parents run errands while child is in therapy. I don't understand what it does. I don't know what it does. Train the trainer, train the person who is doing the programming. Stop just trying to fix the computer. All right, so we can do it even with children in residential care, even with the population, right, with, IQ of 88. And results, again, statistically significant and clinically significant. And just to summarize, one thing to remember. All you need is one parent. A child is a luxury who is engaged and willing and coming in. The second parent who is willing and engaged is also a luxury. Is also a luxury. If child is not engaged and the second parent not engaged, it's going to be more difficult. It's going to be more complicated, absolutely. And we can still do it because at least the child is going to have one protector. I'll talk more about styles of parenting, but what is a protector? I know what to do. I have a capacity to do it. I am not afraid of you, no accommodation, and I'm not making you afraid of me. Harmful, traumatic invalidation, okay? So if we can at least have one parent who can be that for the child, we are indeed increasing probability that the child will reach life worth living and will not have psychiatric conditions in adolescence and adulthood. This is a research by the Norwegian team, Marie. This is the first team I ever trained in 2016, I think, in Norway. And since then, they took, arm in arms and started to do the intervention and doing research. So this study is an interesting one. In this study, Marie and her team did only parent training groups. That's it. No child. No individual therapy, right? Just teaching parents in group what to do from DBTC, parent training component. And they wanted to ask a question, will that do anything? And what they did, they measured, of course, child, issues, and they also measured parental stress. And this is what they found. I'm not going to go into the details due to the time limits. So yes, without child being there, therapists have never seen a child in therapy. Without parents receiving their own individual therapy, just group skills training, we had a significant drop in child problem behaviors. And very importantly, we had a significant drop in parental stress level. Because stress level is not only about what the child is doing. What parents are saying, and I fully understand that, it's not about what the child is saying. My stress comes from, I don't know what to do about it. And whatever I am doing is backfiring. So child can be freaking out, but I know what to do about it. My stress level goes completely down because now I am in control. My sense of safety, we'll talk more about it, right, is saying, all right, you're good. So it's not about what's happening around us. It's about the level of control we have. And when we have the level of control, regardless of what is going on, we feel less stress, significantly less stress. So just something to highlight, 87% of parents reported validation is the most helpful tool. Of course, it's a foundation for change. How else can it be, right? And 93% said they had large and very large benefits and would recommend it to other people. Okay, not going to go into that. This is a study done from Maria Mont. So she is, my close friend and my student and my co-trainer, who is actually going to be doing training tomorrow with me during the training that we're doing on DBTC here in Mexico. And she has done a study looking at, can we use DBTC with Spanish-speaking population? And her approach was to do a single subject experimental design. So she took 4 children, okay, between ages of 8 and 11, and then she administered the intervention in the ABA design, and then looked at whether or not we can see differences per child and as a group. And this is what she was able to find. I'm not going to go into the details. So she was able to find, this is a effect size for single subject experimental designs, and the max is 100%. So it's from 0 to 100. So very large effects, right? For both the symptoms severity decrease and also measure of overall child functioning. So very high effect sizes. Okay. Breathe in, breathe out. A lot of information. And I need to check the time. How much more time I have? All right, I don't have that much time because I have a self-diagnosed verbal diarrhea. I cannot stop once I start talking about one concept. I can talk for years. All right, so I need to keep a mental check on, keeping a check on myself. Main concepts. I already gave you the pieces of the puzzle with this is parent-first approach. And this is not about age, it's about an approach itself. It can be used with any child. Main concepts for you to consider. Other pieces of the puzzle. Everything is dialectical, meaning what? Everything has 2 sides. Night, day, life, death, good, bad, man, women, yin, yang, right? And these 2 sides are not the same. They're complementary. Our existence also has 2 sides. Conditional and unconditional. Conditional is my relationship with other people and external environment. If, then contingencies. If I eat, I'm not hungry. If I study, I may get an A, right? If, then contingencies, meaning conditions are need to be satisfied for something to happen. But if there's a conditional side of the existence, there must be an unconditional one for the virtue of dialectic. What is that? That's my relationship with me. It's supposed to be unconditional, but it's not. What happens is the information field in which we exist merges in our mind. Talk about programming, and I use the metaphor of brain being a biological computer and programming a lot because children understand computers, understand programming, and are using their language. But it also fits very well with our concepts. And brain is a biological computer for all intended purposes. And anytime we make an interpretation, we made a program that goes straight into our software, right? Anyway, so we are supposed to treat ourselves as unconditional. When a little baby is born, is that baby good or bad? Neither. It's an entity of human beings. Just like sun is an entity of stars, and earth is an entity of planets, and squirrel is an entity of fauna, and tree is an entity of flora. Sun cannot be bad for burning my skin and good for giving me light. Sun is sun, and it can burn my skin and give me light. This is the way we represent it. Since everything has two sides and they're complementary, right? One side will always be stable, one side will always be flexible. It relates to anything we touch. And if we want to be effective in our life, we always need to balance between the two sides. That's how change happens, right? If soon as we are one-sided, we're stuck. No change is happening. So this side, my relationship with me, is supposed to be stable. I just am. Neither good nor bad. An entity of human beings, therefore I can always be at peace with me because I am neither good nor bad. As soon as I say I am good, I can also be bad. No peace. I just am. And I succeed, fail. People like me, people don't. Right? Win, lose. That's how it's supposed to be. Information field in which we exist programs us to make all of this one-sided. I succeeded, I am good. I failed, I am bad. People like me, I am good. People don't, I am bad. All day long, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. Insanity, and we're stuck. It's one-sided. That's what's happening. And one of the main things that we're doing, we're helping our clients, parents, and children to understand that, separate that, and learn how to stabilize their relationship with self as I just am, with the synthesis of and, succeed, fail, right? This is very important because I can know what to do, but I also need to have a capacity to do it. Teaching skills, teaching dialectics, teaching cognitive restructuring, all of that is very important. But this is knowing what to do, necessary, not sufficient. You also need to give people the capacity to use it. Where does that capacity come from? My relationship with me. If I hate myself, I'll be self-harming, I'll be self-punishing, I will hate myself, right, through all kind of means. I will be self-critical. If I cannot control the only thing I can, me, what I do, what I feel, what I think, my biology, I will do what? I'll try to get an illusion of control by trying to control everybody else. Blame them for my plight. Blame them for what's happening to me. If you only didn't do what I said, like if you didn't want me to scream, do what I want, right? You are the one who is responsible for me self-harming or for me having a temper tantrum, and making them responsible for solving the problems, right? None of that is real. It's all illusions. It doesn't exist. We can't control other people's life and circumstances, right? And if I don't even belong with my own family, if I don't belong with me, sometimes in my own body, right? How can I belong with other people? How can I form and maintain healthy relationship? No way. That's why we need to understand that, for example, teaching children social skills is fantastic. They just don't use it consistently or at all. Why? Because they don't have the capacity to use them. How can we form and maintain healthy relationships? There is a very important foundational premise. You need to give. You need to give to others. Not eye for an eye. I give you, you give me. No, it's a form of taking. Much better than force, but still taking. What I'm talking about, you need something, here you go. Okay? That's the giving. But for me to be able to give to others, I need to have something to give. So first I need to give to myself. And we have what we call it bake your own bread. 7 ingredients of bread baking, of giving to yourself: self-reinforcement, self-validation, self-love, self-care, self-compassion, cognitive self-restructuring, and self-control. We don't teach our children any of that. Any of you know or have been yourself, right? Or done it yourself or do it with your children. Have any of you heard of anybody or yourself teach your children how to self-reinforce? As simple as, great job, me. I'm not even talking about self-reinforcement process, not on outcome. Outcomes don't belong to us. They don't, right? Because we don't control outcomes. We can only control what? What I do. What's mine is intention and what I did to satisfy my goal. What I get, that's not mine. I cannot say great job me on getting an A. That's A is not mine. I can say great job me studying, right? I'm not even talking about that caveat. Any of you taught your children or were taught yourself or know somebody who teach children how to self-reinforce? Say great job me. No. What we teach our children means programming is wait for other people to say that. We're programming ourselves and other kids, that's called the information field, to be reliant on other people. We're programming our kids to be takers. Not because we're bad people, but it's because the information field in which we exist makes us do that and be that. Love me, reinforce me, validate me, support me, me. What about me, myself? Of course, all of that also needs to happen. Other people need to reinforce and validate us. But then what happens if they don't? We turn vicious because we are hungry, we're dying from starvation, right? And then we'll try to squeeze it out of them, temper tantrums, screaming, yelling, right? So using all of those skills can only be predicated on child's ability to do it, the capacity, right? I'm not going to use skills of breathing in and out and walking away when I didn't get what I want and I'm trying to squeeze it out of my mother. I know the skill, I'm not going to use it, okay? I'm not going to use skills instead of self-harm, right? I hate myself. I need to punish myself. Using skills going opposite to that function. So first I need to heal the relationship with me and stop hating myself at the least. So you see the difference between knowledge and capacity? And what DBTC did, other than introduced a huge parent training component to the adapted DBT standard model techniques and principles and procedures, DBTC brought in the other side of the dialectic. DBT standard model is about addressing what's called external controlling factors, my relationship with the external environment and the way that I deal with stressors. Instead of self-harming, use a breathing technique, right? Now that is the level of the symptom. Suicidality, self-harm, screaming, yelling, they're not problems. They're solutions to problems. When I have so much emotional in me, I self-harm, decrease in emotional arousal, that's a solution. What is a problem? What is the level of problem? My relationship with me. So DBTC now made DBT dialectical. It introduced targeting external controlling factors with adapting DBT standard model skills, procedures, strategies, principles, and big parent training component to support all of that, to promote all of that, to model all of that, and brought in internal controlling factors targeting my relationship with me. So targeting external controlling factors is dealing with symptoms and teaching people what to do instead, helping them address internal controlling factors, problems in relationship with self, is giving them the capacity to do it. And all people in this world have complex relational trauma because we all have been harmfully invalidated, criticized, shamed, blamed, downward comparisons. All of that is damaging my relationship with me and the stability. I'm no longer being, I just am, right? I'm becoming, I am what I do, what my parents are telling me. As simple as saying to your child, "Ah, what a wonderful job you did. I love you so much." Seemingly, what's wrong with that? So caring. You just programmed your child that love is conditional. Sit with this. Wow, what a wonderful job you did. Good girl. You just programmed your child that you can be good and bad. Okay? You don't even have to say that. All you need to say is like, why the hell did you do it? Means what? You're an idiot, and what you did is an evidence that you're an idiot. Okay? This is very simple. That programming is very simple, and it's happening all the time, but we don't know it's happening because nobody's telling us. We are taught by information field that that's how it's supposed to be. Okay? And this is what we're targeting, separating all of this and making people understand and giving them tools how to improve their relationship with self. So what DBTC brought is called core problem analysis. Core problems being sense of self-love, safety, and belonging. All right, back to the slide. The conditional side of the experience, right? External controlling factors, my relationship with the external environment, all of my emotions, all of my behaviors, all of my thoughts, because they are triggered by something needs to happen, if then contingency, except for self-love. Self-love is unconditional, as we all know, and love is unconditional by premise. Okay? So here is, right, up and down, win, lose. This one is stable, unwavering, I just am. The way we describe it to children and adults, right, to make sure that we all understand it, we come here into this world not blank slate. We come already pre-programmed. Our talents, our learning differences, our predispositions to psychiatric disorders, right, psychological disorders, all of that is pre-programmed together with all kind of different reflexes and right and instincts, like an instinct of self-preservation. So this is called hardware in our metaphor of the computer. Now, when this computer, that hardware in that computer, starts to transact with the external environment, learning starts to occur. We call it software, right? Software is my own interpretation of what is happening that now I make, I interpret, goes straight into the software and being stored in it as a memory of, what happened. We all know, this is basic psychological knowledge, that 90%, 90, of our reactions come from unconscious processes. All of those programs in hardware and software are sitting there and triggering our reactions. We don't know even why I do what I do. And then I look at it and say, why did I do it again? And then I continue doing it, right? Which is not a definition of insanity. Even though Albert Einstein said that, his definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. Now, Einstein was a brilliant scientist and a physicist. He was not a good psychologist. No, this is not a definition of insanity. Insanity means does not make sense. Oh, there is a sense. There is a function. There is a program that is making you do what you do. You just don't know what it is. It's not yet on the level of awareness. The true definition of insanity is making something that's not real, real in our mind. Okay? That's true insanity. We call it virus programs. Anything that comes into our mental space can be real, may be real, not real. For example, my boyfriend broke up with me. He hates me. I'm worthless. What's real about it? My boyfriend broke up with me, that's a fact. What's maybe real? my interpretations, right? Maybe he loves you and his mother hates you and broke you up and he will love you for the rest of his life, right? I don't know, it's maybe real. And what's never, ever real that we constantly make real, something happened in the outside environment, I succeeded, I failed, other people said something or didn't say something, and therefore I. Now that's a never real. And it doesn't matter what follows. I'm good, I am bad, I am worthy, I am worthless, doesn't matter, because none of that is real. I just am. I cannot be any of that. But in my own mind, that's real. That's why all people are insane. All of us. Completely and utterly insane. It's just some people know about it and know what to do about it, right? And why are we insane? Because we possess imagination. Animals don't have it. We can imagine something that's not real and make it real. Cars, trains, computers, artificial intelligence. Nature didn't create it, we did. Fantastic creativity power. Everything has a price. What's the price for imagination? We can imagine something that's not real and make it real in our mind. What do we do with all of that? We help people understand it, and we help people through a process called core problem analysis to get to the level of consciousness programs that are virus programs, right? That are triggering, that are making them do what they do without full awareness of why. Get up on the level of consciousness so that you can get a freedom of choice. And then override it. We call it catch, name, override. Oh, hi, my program that I'm stupid. Hi, my program that I'm ugly. You're insane. None of that is real. And then you do the opposite of what the program is telling you to do. In DBT's standard model, it's called opposite action, all right? So everything is connected. All the pieces of the puzzle at the end connect to a coherent picture. So another metaphor that we use, all of that is within the iceberg. 10% of the iceberg is our conscious awareness. And below the waterline, the 90% actually governing our behavior is our software and hardware. And that's what we go to fish. We call those virus programs, listen, I work with children, instead of saying maladaptive virus programs, I say, let's go fishing. Because those fish, with the metaphor of the iceberg, right, they bite at your iceberg, causing you emotional pain. Let's get that fish out so that we know what it is, right? Because if you don't know what it is, you'd read it as if it's real. What you're going to do, you're going to code and recode that maladaptive program over and over again, making it more strong. And it's going to govern your behavior. It's happily going to govern your behavior, specifically if you don't even know it exists and its name, because you don't have a freedom of choice. That's what we're doing. We're giving people freedom of choice to decide what they think and what they do on their own by understanding themselves and their programming and writing new programs on top of the virus programs so that they can use those instead. Listen, once you learn something you can't unlearn, those virus programs don't go anywhere. We can just make them weaker and weaker and weaker and write new programs for our library of the software. That's what we do. With children and, most importantly, their parents, because parents also need to have a capacity to use all of ignoring. How easy is it to ignore a screaming child? Very hard, especially if you as a parent thinking that when you're without conscious awareness, that child freaking out means that you're a bad parent, therefore you're worthless, therefore you cannot love yourself because you're not good enough. Parents don't know that that's the program, but that's interfering with their ability to consistently ignore. And you need to do that with parents, number one, so that they can also help their children to do it with themselves. All right, so who are we targeting? As we said, anybody can be targeted, but this is who we did the research on and who we know for sure it works with. We call them the super sensor. This is the David. This is the hardware that they come with. All right, who are the super sensors? High emotional reactivity, right? Low threshold, meaning doesn't have to be big. What triggers that child? Somebody breathed on me wrong, and then I'm going from 0 to 100 in a split second, and slow return to baseline, meaning it can take half an hour before they get back to baseline of emotions. And of course, with that level of reactivity, you have all kind of behavioral dysregulation, temper tantrums, screaming, yelling, suicidality, and so forth. All right. Now, this is the challenges of emotional insensitivity. But everything has two sides. Remember dialectics? The benefits of emotional sensitivity, don't forget about that. We talk a lot about it. DBT standard model does not make an emphasis on that, unfortunately, but it is there. Research, so much research out there about how being emotionally sensitive gives you enhanced experience of pleasant emotions as well, makes you able to be like a human X-ray because you will be able to read the changes in the emotional state of a person. You may misread in terms of the interpretation of why, but you're definitely going to register. You're definitely going to see it, right? Those of you who work with children who are emotionally sensitive or adults with borderline personality disorder, you know they read you like a page. Yep. That comes from having this very sensitive emotional apparatus. That's a big plus. Also, they have enhanced empathy. They can sense other people's emotions better. They know what pain is themselves, and they're much more adept to being there for other people in between outbursts. During an outburst, that very sensitive, empathic, wonderful, creative child turns into mimics psychopathy, can mimic psychopathy. And we have a lot of research connecting emotional sensitivity with increased creativity. These kids can do all kinds of things. They dance, they sing, they are mathematically gifted, all kinds of things, range of things. They have a different brain. That's the interesting thing. That's why they have so much comorbidity with ADHD and with learning differences, right? And low level of ability to regulate because they have a different brain, which also is conducive to enhanced creativity. Two sides to everything. Unfortunately, the word sensitivity has a negative connotation of being touchy, defensive, resentful, a drama queen. So we're not using that. We're using supersensor. It's like an analog of super taster, right? A person has more taste bud in their palate, and therefore they can become chefs and food critics. However, they cannot probably eat Mexican food because it's very hot. And a little burger or, whatever, hot dog is not going to be good for them, right? So they're quite finicky in their food. Two sides to everything. So by using supersensor instead, we're highlighting both the challenges and the benefits. And, we are avoiding invalidation, and we're providing dialectical view, and we're avoiding pathologizing, and giving children and parents a perspective of parents saying, oh, that's why my kid is so creative and empathic to his sister in between outbursts. Oh, I never connected it, right? And then you can use it with kids by saying, hey, you're a supersensor, meaning that you have this and this, right? Challenges and benefits. And you know what we're here to do? We're here to make sure that you can ride that emotion wave. You're always going to have sensitive emotions. But you need to learn super skills to have super hard muscles, emotion regulation muscles, distress tolerance muscles, right? Mindfulness muscles, interpersonal effectiveness muscles, cognitive restructuring muscles. So you can do this to your tsunamis. All right? Meaning that you'll have a capacity to actually use your benefits, use your gifts of emotional sensitivity instead of being plummeted by the tsunami waves over and over again. And for you to be able to effectively apply and learn your super skills, you need to have super parents, okay? Because regular parenting, good enough parenting is not good enough for super sensors. They need super parents. And that's exactly what we're here to do. Okay, to sum it up, emotional sensitivity is not a problem in itself. It's not a problem in itself. It is actually an ability, a special ability that you need to learn how to control better. Okay, it's not a problem.
It's an ability. And very importantly, not all supersensors become emotionally dysregulated. Emotional dysregulation, right, is something that of a process, doesn't come necessarily together with emotional sensitivity. No, emotional dysregulation is a software that has a lot of virus programs in it. Emotional sensitivity is a hardware. You're born with it. And if you don't know how to raise that child, you're at a higher probability of having a child who is going to have disruptive mood dysregulation in childhood, and then going to adulthood and adolescence, could have personality disorders, specifically borderline personality disorder, depression, anxiety, self-harm, suicidality, all kind of temper problems, and substance use and drug use. Again, none of those are problems in themselves. These are symptoms. These are symptoms, and some of them are solutions to problems, right? If I'm anxious, I drink, I feel better. The environment. Now, emotional sensitivity and the inability of the environment to meet the needs of the sensitive child produces two products: emotional dysregulation of the child and invalidating environment. It doesn't start that way. These children may have siblings and parents coming in and saying, I have two more, and they're absolutely fine. It's just this one is climbing walls. What's going on? And I'm doing the same things to all of my kids. And I say, well, that's your first mistake. These are three different individuals. They need three different types of parenting. Hello. Okay. And when we talk about invalidating environment, we mean what? An environment that is invalidating in a specific way. It is pervasive and indiscriminate. Child is crying because her friend broke her favorite toy. Child punched a friend. Friend, get up and leave. Mom is saying, well, punching your friend is not a way to solve problems. That's invalidating the invalid. Invalidation means something doesn't make sense. Invalidation in itself is not a bad word. Invalidation means something doesn't make sense, while validation means something does make sense. As simple as that, right? So when we talk about invalidation, we need to differentiate what kind. Because invalidation can also be a constructive feedback. Invalidation is about change. What we're talking about when we get to invalidating environment, we're talking about harmful invalidation, criticism, judgment, shaming, blaming, and traumatic invalidation. In some cases, physical, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, right? So mom is saying, punching your friend is not the way to solve problems. Invalidation of the invalid, and there is nothing to cry about. Invalidation of the valid. Of course the child is crying. Makes sense. She sustained two losses, favorite toy and a friend. You see, indiscriminate and pervasive. Everything is wrong. That's invalidating environment. So as I said, good enough parenting is not good enough for sensitive children. They come into this world with specific needs, and parents do not come to this world with knowledge how to address those needs. Children don't come with instructions. They need to learn. And that's what we're here for. And the metaphor I use is super parenting is like firefighters. Okay? Firefighters do not start the fires. Meaning what? Avoiding, modeling, screaming and yelling and using force. Right? Avoiding retaliation. Avoiding harmful traumatic invalidation. At the same time, firefighters are not afraid of the fires. Meaning what? No accommodation. Instead, they calmly and skillfully put down the fires and work on preventing fires from happening in the future, right? This is just a little bit of a sample of everything that parents are doing. Validation, modeling, prompting, teaching of the skills, reinforcement of the use of skills, practicing the skills, and so forth. working on their own emotion regulation, their own relationship with self, and the couples therapy between two parents. Everything is there. So DBTC can directly target the environment. In DBT-studied model, and even with adolescents, we are pretty much just dealing with the aftermath. DBTC does what? It changes the transaction as it's unfolding from maladaptive to adaptive. And that's one of the biggest advantages of DBTC. So, child is a client, parents are the main therapeutic tools, and adaptive transaction between the child and the parent is the overarching goal, because that's when the programming is happening, hopefully with adaptive, not virus programs. Now, 4 styles of parenting, the one that we want, promote, and teach. This is parent protector. I know what to do, have a capacity to do it. I'm not afraid of you, no accommodation, and I'm not making you afraid of me by harmful and traumatic invalidation. Most of the time, parents who come to see us are not there. Ineffective parenting, parent-friend, trying to be a friend to your child. It cannot be a friend to your child. And as soon as you're becoming a friend or trying to be a friend, you lose the protective function. To be a protector, you need to be here. You cannot be on the same level. Well, most of the parents who come to us are not even there. They vacillate between the other two. Parent-servant, accommodators, being afraid of the child, tiptoeing to avoid outbursts. Understandable. We understand, we validate that, right? But validation does not mean agreement. Yes, we understand why your child is impossible, and this is what you need to do instead. Okay? Cannot be afraid of your kid. And you're avoiding, accommodating. At some point, you do need to get control over what's going on and have the child brush their teeth, go to school, do the homework, whatever. Right? So it goes all the way to the other side, which is parent perpetrator, using force. Now we are in harmful invalidation that sometimes gets into the traumatic, and then they're using force, and and you can't do it forever, and then they let go back to the accommodation, back and forth. What kind of programming can you sustain in such an environment? Okay, so now very briefly, what is it that we do? All right, main dialectic, standard model, acceptance and change. Main dialectic of DBTC, which was brought in, this is the balance between addressing external controlling factors and internal controlling factors. Okay, this is knowing what to do. This is acquiring a capacity to do it. And now, let's sum it up, information field. External controlling factors, internal controlling factors. External events that elicit, reinforce, punish, extinguish, shape behaviors. Internal controlling factors, what I talked about, self-love, safety, belonging. This is the level of the symptom, level of the problem. This is relationship with the environment, relationship with self. Standard DBT, DBTA address primarily external controlling factors. Marsha Linehan wrote about it all the time. Now, we are also bringing in addressing relationship with self, which is called core problem analysis, which is a model to assess the virus programs, bring them the level of awareness and additional interventions on what to do with them. And all together is DBT for children. Okay, very fast. Okay, I have to go through this, sorry. All right. When we talk about core problem analysis, we're talking about functions. Why functions are so important. Let's take non-suicidal self-injury. There's so many functions to it, right? For example, coping, communication, peer group connection, attention, right? Here, I cut myself everywhere. Could be instrumental. I don't want to go to school, so I'm going to threaten self-harm. My parents are going to keep me home. Retaliation. Oh, my parents didn't give me what I wanted. I'm going to cut myself, and then they will feel miserable because they feel miserable every time I cut myself, right? Retaliation. Self-punishment, I hate myself, right? Feel the void, I feel nothing. I'm need to experience something, therefore I'm going to harm myself. Or identity, I am this dark person that self-harms. Could be anything. Now, giving skills is pretty much going to help with coping. Instead of self-harm, use a skill. So matching the function. Maybe communication, maybe peer group connection. What about the rest? Using skills are going to go across the function, against the function. If I want to retaliate, I'm not going to use skills. If I want to self-punish, I'm not going to use skills. Right? None of that is going to happen. So, again, tools are important, but we need to give people capacities to use them. People need to understand functions behind their behaviors, and most of those functions, they're completely oblivious about. They don't know. 90% of our reactions come from unconscious processes. Make them conscious. This is the whole point. We're here to help people become their own programmers on a level of awareness. Talk about mindfulness, right? Just in a different way. So how do we address external controlling factors? Well, we talked about this, right? With our DBTC behavioral change model, you need to have awareness, willingness, capability, right? We'll spend a lot of time with willingness because we're talking about intrinsic, extrinsic, right? Reciprocity. I'm not going to go into the terms, functions. So this is mindfulness, this is all the skills training, right? And this is individual therapy that we're getting the child's willingness and parental willingness to actually do all of this hard stuff. And this applies not only to the child, it applies to parents themselves, right? And for us to figure out why the child is not changing, is it awareness, willingness, capability, 2, 3 of them? We first need to do what? We need to make sure that this variable is constant for parents. Otherwise, too much error rate if we are to talk about it statistically. So parents need to model skills. Reinforce skills, ignore behaviors, suppress dangerous behaviors, validate. It's just like a slew of things that they need to do. And they need to gain the capacity to do it and the knowledge. And with that being said, what we're saying to parents, your child's behavior is irrelevant. Capital letters irrelevant until you know what to do and have a capacity to do it. Doesn't matter what your child does. When you come to me and you say, oh, Johnny did this and that, you know my question, what did you do? I don't care what Johnny did. Johnny's not even here. So talking about Johnny's behavior is useless. What did you do? Okay? And because we are in not just talking about doing therapy with a client, one client. No, we're having child, we're having parents, we're having school, we're having babysitters, we're having grandparents. It takes a village to raise a child, so there are many players. So as you know, in DBT standard model, we have 4 main targets in a treatment target hierarchy. In DBTC, we have 10, right? All I want to do is highlight that before we get to why parents are here, target current child symptoms, screaming, yelling, making everybody crazy, punching sister, all of this is here. Before then, outside of life-threatening behavior of the child or therapy destroying, we have parent. Parents coming to me and saying, this and that. I'm like, I can't help you with what your child is doing. You are not here consistently. You keep missing sessions, and or you are not using your own emotional regulation skills. You are modeling to the child emotional dysregulation by having your own adult temper tantrums, and or you are not using effective parenting skills. Instead of you using punishment, for example, all the time, and you have no money in your relationship bank. Everything has a price. You want your child to do what you want them to do and follow your directions right away? You need to pay for it. This is not instinctual for a person, be that child or adult, to do immediately, reflexively, what other people tell them to do. No, it's the opposite. As soon as we're told to do, we instinctually say no. Children are people. So, it's instinctual for your child to say no. You want your child to follow your directions? Pay for it. How? Relationship bank. You need people who come to us, they have relationship bank minus $1 million. You need to consistently put in that bank, such as validation, acceptance, reinforcement, unconditional love, doing things that children like, blah, blah, blah. All of that built in the relationship bank that you can use, and your child, instead of having a function of making you miserable, will have a function of making you happy, proud, right? By following your directions. You need to pay. Okay. All right. So, internal controlling factors. I'm not going to go too far into that. I'm out of time. Again, verbal diarrhea. But I want to highlight what we are working on, and I fortunately already gave you a lot of information at the beginning. We're working on helping people learn how to connect to their self-love. It's an instinct of self-preservation. We all have it. We just don't know how to connect to it. And we make it conditional on having to achieve it and earn it by some sort of good enoughness. Tall enough, smart enough, wealthy enough, whatever enough, right? It's insane. We're making something unconditional conditional, right? And we're working on their sense of safety, which is being in control. Of what? Me. That's the only thing I can control. What I do, what I feel, what I think, my biology, right? Instead of doing illusion of control, trying to control other people. Sense of belonging. How can I give to others? I want to belong. I want to maintain healthy relationships. What is it that you are giving instead of taking? And for you to give to others, you first need to give to yourself. That's why the very first session, I see a client, doesn't matter adult or a child, very first thing I teach is self-reinforcement. Then we talk about validation, we teach self-validation. Then we talk about skills, teach self-control. Then we talk about, dialectics and other things, cognitive restructuring. Then we get to self-love, how to sit with self-love, and so forth and so forth. You see, pieces of the puzzle all coming together. Don't have time for this, but I just want to make sure that you understand. Every response has a foundational function of decreasing vulnerabilities in these core senses. It's just maladaptive responses decrease it short-term, increase long-term, just like self-harm. And adaptive responses do the opposite. They can increase temporarily, decrease long-term. This is how it's works. So this is a skeleton of fishing, doing the core problem analysis to get the maladaptive program out. Why did you self-harm? So we're getting into the functions. We're asking questions, why? Why? What does it do for you? Why is it a problem for you, right? Why did you self-harm? What does it do for you? When I self-harm, other people come running. What does that do for you? Well, then I see that other people are there for me. Why do you need that? Because then I think that they love me. And why do you need that? Therefore, then I'm good enough to love myself. And or people come running, I'm no longer alone, belonging. And or I'm safer because there are other people to help me and protect me. This is a program. It is very rational. It is very logical. It's supposed to be. It's a program, right? And remember dialectics, it's insane at the same time. For me to love myself, I need to harm myself. For me to be at control, I need to harm my body. Okay, that's the insanity. And this is what we're working on. First, we validate it by saying, yeah, makes sense. And now you tell me why that program that makes sense is insane at the same time. Now, this is having the person restructure the way they're thinking, what they're doing on their own term. Now, adaptive programs do the opposite. At first, they can increase vulnerability in three core senses. Why? Because we're going through the door of pain. Why? Because every challenge introduces uncertainty. Our sense of safety does not like uncertainty. Our sense of safety is like, oh, what if I'll make a mistake? Sense of self-love. Oh, what if I will not be good enough? Sense of belonging. What if everybody will think that I'm a schmuck, right? And will not want to be with me? And at first, right? But as soon as we run away, we go straight into the door of suffering. But if we go through, On the other side, long-term, increase in self-efficiency, in self-actualization, right? In every other door is out behind that door. So you see, one more time, all responses, all adaptive and maladaptive, have a primary function of decreasing vulnerability in 3 core senses. Everything that we do can be funneled into that. We just are not aware of it. It's just maladaptive responses decrease temporarily, increase long-term. Adaptive responses increase temporarily, decrease long-term. Okay? People need to understand it. People need to figure this out for themselves. They need to get those programs out, and they need to get a freedom of choice and override them. That's the capacity to use all the skills and techniques and everything else. And once they're good in their relationship with self, they no longer need skills and techniques. They're just mere crutches. Because you're no longer going to have symptoms for which you can use those crutches if you no longer have problems. All right, and I think that I am out of time. Thank you for attending. Yes, but we don't.
Francesca había preparado un video para ustedes de cómo se hace una técnica con una niña pequeña. Estamos ya fuera de tiempo, entonces preguntarles si quieren que veamos el video. ¿Es pequeño o preguntas? ¿Sí? ¿Video sí?
Sí.
Ok.
Sí. Pepita.
Quiero que lo experimentes. Solo te doy información para que sepas qué buscar. ¿De acuerdo? Así que ahora lo que vamos a hacer es esto. Te voy a dar el programa, el código, lo que debes decirle a tu computadora.
So this is just a child. She's actually daughter of my admin team, person. And so she's 5.5. And I'm teaching her how to sit with self-love, how to connect to self-love. Just because, how it's supposed to, right? Now, co-problem analysis can be used with young children. People like, really, you can do analysis? Absolutely. All you need is abstract thinking. And children have abstract thinking. What is imaginary play? This is a knight in shining armor. This is abstract thinking, okay? So the youngest child with whom we did co-problem analysis as an analysis of the virus program was a 5-year-old autistic child with school refusal. We did analysis, he stopped refusing. It's as simple as that, seriously, it's very simple and not easy. Simple, not easy, dialectic, right? But it's very fast because you give freedom of choice to people. Now they understand what's going on and they can override it, okay? The youngest children with whom I was working and could help her to learn how to sit with self-love effectively, and she was actually able to connect, was 4. So Cora is 5.5.
Quiero que lo experimentes. Solo te doy información para que sepas qué buscar. ¿De acuerdo? Así que ahora, lo que vamos a hacer es esto. Te voy a dar el programa, el código, lo que debes decirle a tu computadora. Vas a decírtelo a ti misma. No tienes que decirlo en voz alta. Puedes decirlo dentro de tu mente. Luego vas a cerrar los ojos. Simplemente te vas a sentar. Vas a esperar. Y vas a esperar a que ocurra alguna sensación en tu cuerpo. ¿De acuerdo? Y si sucede, genial. Pero ¿sabes qué? A veces puede que no conectemos de inmediato. Eso también está bien. ¿Es tu primera vez? ¿De acuerdo? Así que no esperes nada en particular. Solo estamos viendo cómo van las cosas. Solo estamos aprendiendo formas. ¿Lista? Bien. Así que lo que vas a decir en tu mente, lo que le vas a decir a tu computadora, es esto. Me permito sentir el amor a mí misma, tal como soy. Cora como Cora. Ni buena ni mala, nada. Solo porque soy yo. ¿Vale? Así que digámoslo juntas. Me permito sentir el amor a mí misma,
sentir el amor a mí misma,
tal como soy.
tal como soy.
Cora. ¿Vale? Vale. Ahora repítelo para mí antes de decírtelo a ti misma. Me permito. Me permito. Ajá.
Me permito
Sentir.
sentir el amor a mí misma,
Tal como soy.
tal como soy yo.
Cora. Está bien. Una vez más.
Me permito
Me estoy permitiendo. Me permito. Ajá.
Me permito
Sentir el amor a mí misma.
sentir el amor a mí misma,
Tal como soy.
como soy yo, Cora.
Está bien una vez más.
Me permito sentir el amor a mí misma, tal como soy yo, Cora.
Increíble. Y luego vas a cerrar tus ojos y vas a esperar y ver qué pasa. ¿Listo? 1, 2, 3. Y lo haré contigo. Y vamos. Dítelo a ti misma. Y luego espera. ¿Sientes algo? ¿Sí? ¿Es difícil de explicar? Está bien. ¿Dónde? ¿Dónde lo sentiste? ¿En tu cara? ¿En tu pecho? ¿En tu barriga? ¿En todo tu cuerpo? ¿En tus brazos? ¿Dónde fue?
Cuerpo.
¿Se sintió como un abrazo? ¿Se sintió como calor? ¿Se sintió como un hormigueo? ¿Qué se sintió?
¿Calor?
Oh, Dios mío, Cora, ¿sabes qué acaba de pasar? Te conectaste con el amor a ti misma. ¡Felicidades! ¿No es increíble? ¡Ah! Todo el cuerpo y lo que siente. ¿Cómo estuvo? ¿Te sentiste un poco conectada contigo misma? ¿Como tú contigo tal como eres?
Sí.
¿Sí? Oh, Dios mío. Está bien, Cora. ¿Recuerda nuestra habilidad?
Muy bien yo.
¡Chócala! ¡Guau! Ahora, Cora, quiero que hagas esto todos los días. ¿Sabes por qué es tan importante?
¿Por qué?
Porque cada vez que te dices, me permito sentir amor a mí misma tal como soy yo, Cora, te estás recordando. Entrenas a tu computadora biológica, para recordar, Cora, que no necesitas ser nadie. No necesitas tener nada. No necesitas lograr nada. Y nadie tiene que querer jugar contigo o estar contigo para que sientas amor por ti misma, porque es gratis. Lo tienes. Naciste con ello. Y no dejes que nadie te diga lo contrario, que necesitas ganarte el amor por ti misma, que necesitas ser lo suficientemente buena, que alguien necesita que le gustes o quiera jugar contigo, o que necesitas sacar buenas notas en la escuela, y solo entonces serás lo suficientemente buena para amarte a ti misma. Nada de eso es verdad. Es como decirle a una ardilla que, para ser ardilla, estar en paz consigo misma y quererse, la pequeña ardilla necesita tener la cola más poblada y larga que todas las demás. Eso es un poco absurdo, ¿verdad? No, eso no es cierto en absoluto. Pero a veces la gente piensa eso. Así que, por supuesto, queremos que otros jueguen con nosotros y tener buenas relaciones y hacer cosas buenas y amables por los demás. Queremos lograr cosas y obtenerlas, pero todo eso solo es importante para nuestra relación con los demás. No es importante en absoluto para tu relación contigo misma. Tú por siempre y para siempre. Cora. Eso es todo. Ni buena Cora, ni mala Cora. Cora. ¿Tiene sentido? ¿Sí? Bien, perfecto. Entonces, esto es increíble.
All right.
Isn't she the cutest? Yeah. Okay, questions.
Una pregunta o un comentario, si alguien quiere hacer.
Comments, questions, thoughts, feedback. Lots of information. I understand. By the way, it was just validation. Oh, yeah, Mike. Okay, yes, they got the mic. Yeah. Oh, hold on.
I keep forgetting that I don't understand Spanish.
Muchas gracias. Voy a formularla en
Okay, I'm
español
good, I'm good.
para poderme
Of course,
expresar mejor.
I'm hearing translation, yes.
Muchas gracias. De verdad, excelente ponencia en primer lugar. Creo que a los sistemas de salud algo que nos hace muchísima falta justo es poder garantizar la implementación de técnicas basadas en evidencia científica. Eso es bien importante. La pregunta que yo tendría es, ¿cuál considera que fue la clave del éxito para lograr la permanencia, sobre todo de los padres? Es muy complicado, sobre todo tantas sesiones, el poder garantizar la permanencia en una atención a padres de familia, sobre todo por todas las otras actividades que habitualmente realizan. En la experiencia, en las unidades de atención aquí en México, es difícil. Habitualmente quien acude a acompañar a los menores tiende a ser un cuidador primario, un abuelo, un tío, tía, ¿no? Que son las personas que habitualmente acuden, pero que no necesariamente están a cargo de la crianza. Pero esto se debe a la dificultad de que los padres puedan estar presentes. Entonces, me gustaría mucho conocer cuál consideran ustedes que es la clave del éxito para poder lograr esta permanencia, esta adherencia de los padres.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And there was an answer partially already in your question. Who is with the child? If parents are there, but mostly the child is raised by grandparents, I need grandparents in treatment. Not parents too, but I need grandparents. Is it babysitter? I need babysitter, okay? When I say parents, I mean the caregiver for the child, the main caregiver. So I need the main caregiver. The second thing is you need to set up the way they're thinking. You tell them, listen, you come here and we're on the same level. You're an expert on you and your child and your goals. I am an expert on how to make those goals happen and how to address them. So I don't tell you what the goals are, and you don't tell me how to solve them. So you being here means that whatever you were doing before doesn't work. Otherwise, we would not be talking, right? Therefore, I am an expert on what to do. You don't have to agree with me. You have to do it. And then you come back and we figure out what worked, what didn't work, but you have to do it. Okay? So the setup is you don't have to agree with me. You don't have to like it. You're not going to like it. Most of what I'm teaching is counterintuitive and mood inconsistent. Your child is going to scream at you and say, "You bastard, I hate your guts, I wish you die." And you're supposed to ignore being so disrespected? That's counterintuitive, yes, and very mood inconsistent because you want to scream back, right? So I'll be telling you to do things that you don't want to, that you feel doesn't make sense to you. That's okay, still do them. And if you do this, you know what you're gonna, the other part to that, why people keep coming back, what maintains the consistency? Rapid results. It works. I can breathe. My child is not sucking all the air out of my life. Now, here is a problem. They're like, okay, I'm done. All right? Now, you need to catch them before they get to the point, okay, I am done. No. You feel relief. It doesn't mean that you are done. This is like you took painkillers for the appendicitis. The appendicitis still needs to be removed. Your relationship with your children needs to be improved. Your relationship with you needs to be improved. Your relationship with your partner needs to be improved. So much more to do. So the initial relief, that's when they can start like, oh, okay, I'm good. No, catch them. So, and that's what maintains them understanding this.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. It was a great question.
Muchas gracias por la excelente información, felicidades. Definitivamente necesitamos aquí en México herramientas de este tipo. Sin embargo, como comentaba también la compañera, por ejemplo, en hospitales públicos en donde estamos, en el Hospital Psiquiátrico Infantil, este tipo de programas tiene que estar disponible 24 horas, ¿cierto? Por teléfono. Entonces, eso sería como a lo mejor algo que se tendría que gestionar, ¿no? Para que pudiera haber como un equipo, además de especializado en esta terapia, que estuviera 24 horas, ¿no? Disponibles en el teléfono para que pudiera contener y todas estas herramientas que se aplican. No sé qué otra como estrategia o recomendación podría darnos acá en las instituciones públicas.
I have all kind of strategies because I face so many things. I've been in residential care, inpatient hospitals, outpatient care, this, that. So this is what works. The least amount of time with therapist, right? Because we are all stretched. We have resources, right? Needs to be consumed and, money, time. Least amount of time with therapist that is very targeted. Whatever time you have, targeted. So, parent training is on demand, online. Parents go there, learn me talking about all of those concepts and teaching them. And I'm training parents the same way I train therapists. Part 1, external controlling factors. Part 2, internal controlling factors. They know everything therapists do, just in a simplified and condensed version. And then, based with that knowledge, they come to therapists, be that face-to-face, be that online, be that just a question on the phone, consultation, and then therapists can refine their knowledge and target specific application to the needs of that specific child. And also work on the relationship of the parent to themselves. So that is the biggest trick on how to save resources and time. Yeah. Outside of that, we still need to see children. We still need to see parents. We still need to work on all of this. The question is, how can we manage it so that the team is consistent with each other, right? And the team members pretty much on the same, so trained in the same way. Okay, and now this is a different level of complication of how to make therapists in Mexico actually have access to the trainings and to the interventions. Okay, so that, and this is what we're discussing later today.
Ya. Iba a decir justo eso. Muchas gracias por la pregunta. Gracias por estar hasta esta hora con nosotros. Nos extendimos media hora más, así es que gracias por su tiempo. Ahorita con algunas personas que acordamos previamente.
Thank you so much.
Sí.
Thank you. Thank you. My
Sabemos-
pleasure and privilege.
No. Sabemos que hubo un gran interés en YouTube, aquí mismo, que no va a ser la última conversación, Francesca, esta es la primera, y que vamos a seguir platicando de esto. Entonces, a las personas con quienes nos vamos a reunir en un momento les pediríamos salir del auditorio y ahorita los vamos a guiar a donde es el aula. Y a las demás personas, de verdad, tremendamente agradecerles su presencia, que mantengan comunicación y contacto en las redes sociales. Vamos a estar anunciando lo que vayamos a estar haciendo y que pues si tienen preguntas está el código QR, déjenlas ahí porque va a ser otra conversación para Francesca más adelante, quizá virtualmente, poder seguir conversando de todo esto. Así que muchísimas gracias por todo.